Welcome to the Real View podcast, where Ohio Realtors connect you to innovators and influencers, keeping you with the real view of real estate. Whether you're a broker, agent, first-time homebuyer, industry leader, or just happen to stumble upon our podcast today, you can expect to hear tips, tools, tricks, interesting information, and so much more from the experts in Ohio's real estate game. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Real View podcast. I am your host, Allison Wiley. Joining me today, our special guest is Diego Sanchez. He is the president at HousingWire Media. Diego, welcome onto the show. We're so happy to have you.
Allison, thank you so much for having me. It is really an honor and a pleasure to join you.
Yeah, we're really excited to be talking to you today a little bit more about HousingWire, about what you all do there, more about you, yourself, your journey, and what we can expect as we head into a new year. I know there is a lot, that's coming down the pipeline for us as we flip those calendars over and just learn a little bit more about your company and how it can help some of our realtors out there as we head into a new year. But before we get started on that, I would like to know a little bit more about you, your career journey, what's led you to where you are today. Tell us a little bit about your background and history.
Sure. So before I joined HousingWire 6 years ago, I spent a pretty long career in business to consumer media with brands like Microsoft's MSN, Rodale, which publishes men's health and women's health, Travel Zoo. So was really involved in the media space, but not in business media like I am now. So a little over 6 years ago, I partnered up with the CEO of HousingWire, Clayton Collins, to help run this business. And it has been a fantastic journey. We are trying to build essentially the Bloomberg of media, of housing. Bloomberg is the Bloomberg of media, but the Bloomberg of housing, where we combine journalism with data and analysis to give housing professionals really all the insights and analysis they need to better their career and grow their business.
Yeah, that's great. Thanks for a little bit more on you and your background and how you got started. I know we're a big fan of what you all do here at Ohio Realtors. We've recently partnered with you all to offer some of your services to our brokers. So any brokers out there listening, make sure you have signed up for your HousingWire subscription. I know you all do a fantastic job and just are unbiased and are providing real and raw data out there that can help our agents, and help every housing professionals. Tell us a little bit about the types of information and resources that you all provide to real estate and housing professionals.
Sure. So we have a fully independent newsroom that covers the housing beat overall, but dives into each of the verticals. So our legacy is covering the mortgage vertical, but we've been pushing really hard into real estate over the last several years. And we've done that organically and actually through acquisitions. We acquired a company called RealTors, which publishes rankings for brokers and team leaders and top agents every year. It is a very widely respected rankings product and has been operating in real estate for several decades. And so that also gave us an event called the Gathering of Eagles, which many of your brokerage leaders may be aware of. We have actually since turned that event into an event called The Gathering, where we bring together real estate leaders, mortgage leaders, title leaders, appraisal and valuation leaders, really into an all things housing community and event. And so, one of the ways that we bring content to our audience, it's not only through the written form and through audio like this, but we actually have several live events during the year, and the Gathering is one of those. We also acquired a business called Altos Research almost exactly 2 years ago. And what Altos Research gives us is really real-time housing market information for every zip code across the country. It's really powerful data, and it helps our newsroom write about what's happening in the national housing market, but also what's happening in state level, regional, and local housing markets as well.
I think that's really important to note too, like that you can get down really that specific into those neighborhoods, into those specific zip codes and get data, because so many of our members and our agents, only focus in specific areas. And I think being able to have that data, really nailed down that granular is really helpful and really is a great thing you offer. In your perspective, what is it about the housing and real estate industry specifically that data is so important and that there is this need, for news and insights and everyone wants to always know, well, how's housing when it comes to the economy? In your opinion, in your perspective, why do you think that is that the housing market that there's such a need for that knowledge and those insights when it comes to our industry?
Well, really, data is everything when it comes to housing. And if you look at how a housing market performs, to me, it really boils down to really two variables. What are the mortgage rates? So we spend a lot of time thinking about mortgage rates and where they might go. And what's the inventory of homes available for sale, right? If there's no inventory, you can't really sell much, right? And so we've seen that over the past several years, which has been a low inventory market. It's been a much more difficult housing market compared to historical trends. And so, really, to me, the data is everything. And so, as a real estate agent, a team leader, a broker, understanding what's happening in your local market and being able to provide that data backed advice to your clients, whether it's on a listing presentation or you're working with a home buyer, maybe a first time home buyer who doesn't really understand the market fully, being armed with that data on your local housing market is super important. We all know that real estate is local. And so having that data, again, in every zip code across the country is really helpful for us as we try to help housing professionals do their jobs better.
Yeah, no, it absolutely is. And when we talk about everything that the industry has experienced, in 2024 with practice changes and the need to be communicating your worth and your value and what you bring to the table when you work with your clients. I mean, this is such a great asset and such a great tool, that you can arm yourself with to be able to walk into those listing presentations or those buyer representative consultations and be able to say like, hey, I know the stats, I know this market better than anybody else. And that's really a great way to set yourself apart. And I think that's really cool. How have you seen, agents and other, housing professionals, as you mentioned, not just exclusively to realtors, but other housing professionals? How have you seen them kind of use your services and your what you all are able to provide to really help grow and elevate themselves in their business?
Yeah, at HousingWire, we really believe in the trusted advisor that a real estate agent or a loan originator can be as part of a home buying journey or a home selling journey. And so, a trusted advisor is somebody who has proven their value in a number of ways. They've proven that they're consistent, that they're reliable, but that they also know what's happening in that local market. They are a trusted local advisor, and so I really think that data, in addition to the news that we publish on a daily basis and the analysis that we bring to our audience, all of those things help a real estate agent or a loan originator be that trusted advisor that I think every home buyer or home seller needs, regardless of whether it's your first time purchase, the first time you're selling a property, or it's the seventh time that you're buying or selling a property. It doesn't really matter. There's, having that trusted advisor who can help you think about, oh, how am I going to negotiate this offer? Where am I going to set this price? What does it make sense in terms of terms and conditions? Being armed with the latest in data and news just helps that person be that trusted advisor.
Yeah, it really does. And just helps you, grow your own knowledge around the industry, right? I think one of the best things, that realtors can do is always be on the hunt for more knowledge and always be learning and growing and wanting to educate yourself. And, this is a great way to do it. Making sure you're up to date on the latest news and trends and data is really, really a great way to sharpen your skills and make sure that you're staying as educated as you can when you're working with your clients. Do you have a favorite project or something that you've worked on in your time in Housing Wire that really stands out to you, or what has been a special moment for you as president of Housing Wire that you've been able to experience in your career?
Yeah, it's actually happened pretty recently. Last year and into this year, we went through a rebranding process. And it was interesting. We started with the name Housing Wire and we ended with the name Housing Wire. But the journey of how we ended up sticking with Housing Wire was a really interesting one. And it was a really fun project where we actually worked with a brand agency called 1000 Watt, and we really thought through what is the value that we're trying to bring to our audience. And it really is, we think our superpower is we cover the whole housing ecosystem. So there are a lot of media companies out there that maybe cover, real estate specifically or mortgage specifically or title specifically. We're looking at the whole ecosystem because we think it's really important for a real estate agent, for example, to understand all the mortgage products that are out there, to understand why appraisals and valuations can hold up a deal. And it's really important for the LO to understand, what are the pain points of a real estate agent. So we're really trying to bring the whole industry together and provide that holistic coverage that, again, helps the real estate agent or the loan originator be that trusted advisor, because not only do they know their specific vertical, they know what's happening across the housing ecosystem.
And they're able to work with those individuals, those lenders, those appraisers. If your realtor, if you as a member of Ohio Realtors are educated on what your partners in the industry are going through, that also gives you an extra step up when it comes to what you're able to provide. If you're able, to say to your lender, "Oh, I know you guys are experiencing this," or your appraiser, "I know you guys are experiencing this," what a great way to build those relationships and have that kind of understanding. I'm just thinking if you're a realtor and I was able to know all this, that'd be awesome, right? It really helps take you to the next level.
Yeah. And we think the way we think about it now is we are providing the full picture of the housing ecosystem. It's not a siloed view, it's the full picture.
Yeah, no, that's really great, and it gives just a well-rounded view on everything that's going on. And 1000 Watt, they are amazing. I know we've worked with them here numerous times at Ohio Realtors, and the value that they bring and what they've been able to do for our industry has been really really cool. And that's awesome to hear that you had a great experience working with them as well. They are really great contributors to us in our industry. Coming off of 2024, I always say you can't look into the future without reflecting on the past. What did you think about this year and everything that we experienced, and then our settlement land and just everything that was going on with all of that? How did you navigate such a different year with new changes, legal battles, from your perspective, what you all have been able to do there? What was 2024 like from you, and how did you navigate all of the stuff that we experienced last year?
It's funny, Allison. When I first joined Housing Wire, one of my major worries was, moving from business to consumer media to business media. Is this going to be boring? Like, am I going to think this is boring? And wow, it has been the exact opposite, really, all 6 years. There is so much disruption and innovation and change happening in housing. It's just been nonstop all 6 years. And 2024 was no different, right? We had a very difficult housing market in a lot of ways, right? Not a lot of transactions, or at least compared to historical numbers. The NAR settlement, with the commission lawsuits leading into that settlement, created a lot of disruption and change in the industry. And so for me, it was kind of the same old in a lot of ways. Like, it's almost like so much change and disruption has become the normal for me. And so, we approached it like we've approached every year that I've been with the company. We want to be that trusted source of information. And that's even more important when there is so much disruption and change. You need that constant of like, okay, I know I can go read Housing Wire and have a better understanding of what the heck is going on here, whether it's the commission lawsuits, whether it's the NAR settlement, and all the changes that are going to be happening over the next, really several years as we adjust to those changes that are required by the settlement. So to me, it wasn't much different from every year before, because we just try to be that trusted source and that steady ship through these turbulent waters that it's been for the past 6 years.
Yeah, and kind of just staying focused, on the mission and on your value proposition, and that, will kind of lead you through the chaos and the storminess when it comes to, what we've experienced this year. And like you said, the past 6 years, I think our CEO said something the other day too, and he says, there hasn't been a normal year since I started this job. So it's like the fact that, it's always going to be something, whether we're dealing, with COVID, whether we're dealing with, settlement and practice changes and lawsuits and things like that, there's always going to be something that disrupts the change. And when you focus on just what you do best and making sure you do it the best, that's a great way to kind of navigate and get through that.
Absolutely. And being steady and just following the data, right? Like, we're not trying to approach any story or topic with any kind of preconceived notions. It's like, we just got to follow the story and follow the data and be as unbiased as we possibly can be. And so that's what we try to do for our housing professional audience.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's why I think, you all have been so successful in what you've been able to create, and have really, become that leader and that preferred source of that information. I think what you all have created, you've done a great job with, and, we can access you and you'll have the best, unbiased, up to date information for us. And I think that's really great.
This episode of The Real View is brought to you by the Ohio Association of Community Colleges. Ohio's network of community colleges provides accessible training that accommodates the busy lifestyles of aspiring real estate professionals at half the price of a traditional university. With convenient locations in every part of the state, as well as online options, Ohio's community colleges are your smart choice for pre-licensing education. For more details or to start the journey to a real estate career, visit the education page at ohiorealtors.org and then click on the pre-license course locations.
You talked a little bit about some of the trends that realtors and real estate professionals dealt with this year: low inventory, interest rates, inflation. These are always things that impact our market. I want to talk a little bit about 2025 and what you're seeing on your end, what the data is showing you. I know your economist, Logan Mohtashami, is going to be joining us at our winter conference, and we're so excited to be having him giving us a bigger picture update. But since I have you, I have to ask a little bit more about what's happening in 2025, the trends that you're seeing, and what we can expect is from the housing market as we head into 2025.
Yeah. And Logan is great. He will be a really good featured speaker at that event. He speaks pretty regularly across the country. And we always get rave reviews back from his audiences. And, he's part of a really dynamic duo of housing market forecasters that we have at HousingWire. So Logan Mohtashami is one of them. He's been writing for us, probably since pretty early on in my days at the company. So, probably 5 years at this point. And the amazing thing about Logan is, like, he just hasn't been wrong for the past 5 years. And forecasting the housing market is really hard. There's just so many variables and potential for disruption. And he's just called it all really accurately over the past 5 years that he's written for us. So it's amazing to have him. And now he's partnered with the founder of Altos Research, this guy, Mike Simonson, who is also just a really good housing market forecaster. And they both approach it from a slightly different angle. Logan always thinks about it, from an interest rates, mortgage rates perspective for the most part. And Mike really thinks about it from the inventory available for sale, home prices, and other variables of housing market data, based on the data set that he's built at Altos. And so what they've actually done for 2025 is they've combined their efforts and they put out a forecast, and it's HousingWire's first ever official housing market forecast. It is for the entire year of 2025. And actually, if folks join the group membership that we've partnered with Ohio Realtors on, they can get access to this forecast. It's an amazing forecast. It's about 30 pages long. It's very dense and detailed with information. But from a high level, we are cautiously optimistic about what's going to happen in 2025. We think that it's a good thing that inventory has grown in 2024. More homes available for sale means more homes that can sell. And we've seen that trend kind of continue throughout 2024, where the homes available for sale are like 25 to 35% higher than they were in 2023. So starting to get back to more of a healthy balance between supply and demand, which is a really good thing. And so that takes some of the pressure off of home prices, which have just skyrocketed over the past 3 or 4 years. And so we see inventory going up a decent amount in 2025, but we don't see tremendous home price increases. In fact, we're only seeing an increase of about 3.5% in 2025. Mortgage rates are really, really tough to forecast because there's so much that goes into them. So we see a range there anywhere from the high fives to the low sevens. And we think if it's at the bottom end of that range, so in the high fives, low sixes, that could be a pretty healthy housing market in 2025. So overall, we're seeing home sale growth of about 5% in 2025, home price increases of about 3.5% in 2025. And like I said before, if you're part of this group deal that we've got with Ohio Realtors, you can get access to that forecast and read all the detail behind it. And what's cool about the detail is they have all of these like counter examples. So like, what should you look for in the data that's going to say, okay, we're going to be wrong about this forecast? So we give people a lot of clues. If they can track the data week after week, here's where we might be wrong as 2025 goes on. So it's just a really interesting way to present the analysis. I am personally cautiously optimistic about 2025. I think that Mike and Logan are a little bit maybe low on the range for mortgage rates. I think mortgage rates are going to stay higher for longer, unfortunately. But I do think that what that does is it opens up more inventory and more opportunity to sell properties. And I think people will get more and more used to those rates being a little bit elevated. And so we won't have as much of a mortgage rate lock-in effect in 2025 as we've had in 2024 and 2023.
Yeah, no, that was a fantastic overview. And I know I'm interested in seeing that after we wrap up here today. I'm going to go download that and take a look at it myself. And what a great resource, not only for you professionally, but I'm thinking writing, blog articles based off of this information. Like there's so much you can do with that will help, get your word out there and get your expertise out there. And I'm a nerd for stats and data and predictions. And like you said, Logan's one of the best at what he does. So we are really excited to be having him here at our winter conference to kick us off with a overview of 2025. Make sure to register for that now, you guys, if you haven't yet. Logan's going to be there along with a few other amazing speakers who are going to give a really great kickoff to the year. And we can't wait to have him. And I agree with you. I think, if we get into that, 5, mortgage rate with a 5 in front of it, I think that could really encourage some of the people who are sitting on the sidelines and waiting. But also I agree with you too, in the fact that like COVID's 5 years old at this point, we are not ever going to see those 2% rates come back again.
No, and the more that you can encourage your sphere to not be locked in by those rates, because the reality is, we probably aren't going to see a significant home price decrease anytime in the foreseeable future, right? It just doesn't look like our economy is going to struggle that much. In fact, it seems like we might be heading into a soft landing, which would be pretty amazing because it's never really happened before. And so if you're waiting for rates to drop and for prices to drop, you should much more be looking at, okay, what's my ability to buy? What's my family situation? What do I need instead of like what are the prices that are available and what are mortgage rates. It should be much more a factor of like what's happening in your family and your life as opposed to what's happening in the housing market, if that makes sense.
100%. No, I couldn't agree more. If you need a place to live, that you're going to need a place to live regardless of what the interest rate is, right? So I think no, that makes total sense. I'm just curious, and you might not know the answer to this, and that's okay. But if you know where Ohio stands when it comes to a national landscape or what we can expect in the state of Ohio, I know NAR released their migration report, and Ohio was in the top 10 of states where people were moving into, which I thought was interesting. Can you share with us any information or anything that you're seeing in it when it comes to Ohio and what we can expect next year?
Yeah, I can. I actually looked at some of the Altos data for different cities in Ohio before this conversation. And it's interesting. It's really a seller's market right now. And there's a number of reasons for that. But the big reason is inventory is low compared to historical trends. And we're seeing that. It's really interesting. It's really a tale of two markets in the US right now. There's what's happening in the Midwest and the Northeast, and what's happening in the South and the West. And so during the pandemic, there was a ton of migration out of the Northeast and the Midwest to the South and the West, right? And we're seeing a little bit of a slowdown in that. In fact, a reversal in some areas. So you mentioned that Ohio, there's a lot of people who are inbound to Ohio now. That probably hasn't been the case for a decent amount of time, right? And so some of those trends that we saw during the pandemic are definitely reversing a little bit right now. And so we're seeing, quite a bit of inventory available for sale in markets like Texas and Florida, which were boom towns, boom states during the pandemic. We might actually see some prices start to fall in some of those markets in 2025. And you compare that to the Midwest, and I'm in Brooklyn, New York, the Northeast, and it's tight here. Inventory is very tight. It is still very much a seller's market here. And looking at, several different cities in Ohio, those are also seller's markets. And again, I think it all ties back to inventory available for sale. So, if you look at these different cities in Ohio, what you notice is that like a lot of them are at half the amount of inventory that they were from 2019, right? And so if you just think about that, like 2019 was our last healthy national housing market where supply and demand were pretty much in a healthy balance. And so, to be at half of that inventory level, it's a pretty strong seller's market right now.
Yeah, that's crazy. And it sounds like we may be getting some relief, right, from what you're saying the predictions are for 2025. We hopefully will see a little bit better inventory right there. I know that's something we hear from members all the time. How do we get more houses on market? So hopefully that's good news. I know that will sound good to everyone listening that we are projected to see a little bit of relief when it comes to those inventory levels. Because yes, that is, we have all these people wanting to move to Ohio. We have to make sure that they have places to live. So
absolutely. And a healthier balance between supply and demand benefits everybody. You don't want to have a market that is locked up by supply demand imbalance. It's harder to sell, it's harder to buy. And so, while homeowners may not see the rates growth in their equity that we've seen over the past 4 or 5 years, maybe they can actually sell that place if they need to, much more effectively and much faster if they're in a healthy market. So it really benefits everybody to have that healthy balance.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I want to thank you again so much, Diego, for joining me today, for sharing a little bit more about what you all do at HousingWire. And thank you for just being a great partner to us here at Ohio Realtors and to all of our members and our brokers who are receiving, this awesome member benefit. We really appreciate it. And we're grateful for your partnership, and we can't wait to see what 2025 brings. And I appreciate your time here and sharing a little bit of your insights as we head into a new year.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. And we actually have a Slack channel where every time a new member comes in, whether it's somebody who subscribes on our site or through one of our partnerships like we have with Ohio Realtors, we see the information about that new subscriber show up in that Slack channel, just their name. And it's really fun to see, folks from Ohio streaming in based on our partnership. And so, we love working with you and look forward to continuing to working effectively with you in 2025.
Yeah, absolutely. Here too, same for us. And any brokers out there, make sure you are signing up for your free complimentary HousingWire subscription from Ohio Realtors, straight for you all. There is a link in your email. You can also visit Ohio Realtors website under the broker toolkit and get the link to sign up for your subscription. As Diego mentioned, just so much on there to digest and take stock of as we head into a new year. So make sure to check that out and register for Winter Conference. You will hear from economist Logan with HousingWire. So much good information that's going to kick us off right for our new year. So thank you again, Diego, for joining us. And to all of our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back with you next week.
Thank you for listening to The Real View. That wraps up today's episode. You can keep up with the latest on the podcast at ohiorealtors.org/therealview and on Apple or Google Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. Have questions, comments, or suggestions? We want to hear from you. Email us at podcast@ohiorealtors.org. We'll see you next time.